Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to the preview for the 2021 Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Last time out, it was all about the famous streets of Monaco, but now attention turns to what could be a very interesting weekend, both on and off track, at the Baku City Circuit, of course, sitting out last year due to the pandemic. Now, I know there are some of you who can't stand it when F1 gets all political in the paddock, but I cannot wait for this one. Let's just hope the racing is as tasty as the drama behind the scenes could well end up being. Right then, let's kick off this preview with a quick look back at 2019, the last time F1 visited the track, of course. After the heartbreak of 2018, all eyes were on Valtteri Bottas as he went out seeking some redemption for that puncture, which, by the way, gave us this incredible photo. As they say, a picture paints 1,000 words, or a picture is worth 1,000 words, whichever you prefer. But anyway, Bottas started on pole and was challenged by his teammate early on as the two went wheel to wheel for the first chunk of the opening lap. Bottas coming out on top, but great stuff early doors. Fast forward to lap 5 and Charles Leclerc, who started 8th, made his way up into P7 and then passed Verstappen on lap 10 to take P4. On lap 32, Daniel Ricciardo went for a move on Daniel Kvyat, but locked up and went straight on into the escape road, with the Russian having to also miss the corner to avoid a collision. However, Ricciardo, who admitted post-race that, quote, "the urgency stopped me from looking," found reverse in his Renault and back straight into the Toro Rosso, an incident he was later handed a 3-place grid drop for, and both drivers ultimately retired from the race. Lap 36 and Pierre Gasly, who started in the pit lane, was running long and was passed by Leclerc for P5, but despite a really good drive to that point, he retired 3 laps later with a drive shaft failure. And in the closing stages, Hamilton closed the gap to teammate Bottas and pushed hard to try and take the win, but the Finn held on to take victory, leading home his teammate, and Sebastian Vettel took the final step on the podium for Ferrari, with his teammate Leclerc nicking the .4 fastest lap on the penultimate lap of the race. One final thing to note, 2019 also saw FP1 cancelled following a big incident involving George Russell's Williams and a drain cover. The cover came loose on the approach to turn 3 and caused huge damage to the underside of his car. The session was called off whilst repairs and checks were carried out around the circuit, and everything was sorted and ready to go for FP2. Let's hope we don't see a repeat of that this time out though. Shall we start flying through some of the usual stats ahead of this weekend then? A lap of the Baku City Circuit is 6.003 kilometres. That is, if miles are for you, 3.730, and has a total of 20 corners. 12 of those are left-handers and the other 8 are obviously therefore right-handers. And come Sunday, we will see a total of 51 race laps, all being well. And the race lap record, by the way, is held by Charles Leclerc, who posted a 1:43.009 in 2019. As was the case last time F1 visited Baku, there are 2 DRS zones available to aid overtaking, with one running down the latter stages of that long straight, and the other one running between turns 2 and 3. As you would expect, given that it is a street circuit, overtaking opportunities are few and far between, with turns 1, 2 and 3 probably offering up the best opportunity to get a move done. Maybe you could make a move into turn 16 as well, but you'd just be leaving yourself open to being passed into turn 1 with the DRS, which is probably going to be fairly OP this weekend. One thing is for sure though, definitely more viable opportunities than in Monaco. When it comes to strategy, something which could easily decide this one, the tyre compounds available for the weekend are once again the softest in the range, and that is the hard C3, the medium C4 and the soft C5. Interestingly enough, it will be the first time that Pirelli have gone for the softest in the range for Baku, having usually gone middle of the range, so that could give us an element of unpredictability when it comes to the strategy. Last year, the winning strategy was a one-stop with Bottas going from softs to mediums. As for the longest stints, Nico Hülkenberg was able to take the soft 16 laps, with Kimi Raikkonen running the mediums for 44 laps, and the hard tyre was not used according to Pirelli's data. With all that in mind, I am so glad they've gone for the softest compounds, but that could mean we see the hard and mediums being used for the race on Sunday rather than the softs. And probably we'll see the front runners trying to get through Q2 on the mediums. That said, again, it's a street track, so track evolution will be very high, so that could be a gamble. And if the midfield teams use the soft to try and make Q3, it could force the leaders onto the soft tyre too. It should be a fascinating session on Saturday. What about the weather though? Could we see some rain? Well, no, probably not. It is set to be dry all weekend with highs on Friday of 24 degrees. And that is a very similar story for Saturday and Sunday, although it will be a degree hotter with highs of 25. Basically hot, dry and sunny. As always though, that is the forecast at time of recording, and that could all change come the weekend, but I wouldn't expect rain or snow or anything like that in Baku. Snow would be incredible. The big talking point going into this weekend, though, is not so much about strategy or even the on-track action, it's more about what will happen off it. Yes, you guessed it, the Flexi Wing saga is set to dominate the news in Baku. If you didn't know, very short version of things, all of this centres around how much the rear wing on some cars flexes at high speed, with Red Bull bearing the brunt of the media coverage, although it's got to be said other teams have also exploited the tolerances permitted by the regulations, including the likes of Ferrari and Alpine. All three teams, by the way, have admitted that they will have to change the design to meet the tests implemented by a new FIA technical directive that will come into force from the French Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton believes the wings could be worth up to 6/10 in Baku, whereas Frederick Vasseur does not believe they'll be a game changer in any way at all. And Toto Wolff has previously indicated that some teams could protest against the wings if other teams choose to run them. That has also led to Helmut Marko and Red Bull pointing to how much the front wing on the Mercedes flexes. However, Toto Wolff says the Red Bull front wing bends just as much as theirs does. It all feels right now like a war of words through the media to try to put pressure on each other, but this could very easily all end up in front of the stewards. Now, according to Michael Schmidt at AMUS, Mercedes, Aston Martin and McLaren believe the flexi wings could be worth up to half a second on the straights in Baku, and Ross Brawn has allegedly told him that the stewards will listen to what the FIA Commission says if a protest is made, and are likely to point out that the current test procedure is still valid until June 15th, and so if that is the case, the wings will be deemed legal. He ends his piece by saying that he doesn't expect much to come from any protest this weekend, but I will add, Toto Wolff has already said this could end up in the International Court of Appeal, so even if the stewards decide things are all above board, it may not be the last we hear of this latest disagreement between teams. Will we see a protest though? That is the big question. Well, if Red Bull and co decide not to run the wings because they don't want to take the risk of losing any and all points if it turns out they are running them illegally, essentially if the risks outweigh the potential benefits, then no, we won't. Also, whilst I can't know for sure, I'm fairly confident that if Mercedes, McLaren and Aston Martin rock up to Baku and finish ahead of their rivals, things could easily go very quiet and they may choose to let it go. That is the state of play at time of recording, which just to let you know is Wednesday afternoon. So if anything has broken since, I'll pop a link to an article covering it in the description and I'll pin it in the comments as well. But it is all going to be very interesting this weekend. So, and I know one of you is just itching for me to say this, watch this space. Let's move on though and have a quick look at a few bonus stats about Baku. The first race at the circuit took place in 2016 and was actually titled the European Grand Prix before changing its name to the Azerbaijan Grand Prix a year later. Mercedes says the distance from pole position to the first braking zone is 137.8 metres. There has never been a repeat winner around the circuit, although 2021 will only be the fifth time F1 has visited. Daniel Ricciardo, by the way, is the only non-Mercedes winner. The Baku City Circuit sits 28 metres below sea level. You know you needed to know that. And the average winning margin from the 4 races at the track comes in at just 6.146 seconds. Oh, and the review of the 2017 Azerbaijan Grand Prix was the first ever video uploaded to the F1 Word YouTube channel. Just some self-promotion there because, well, why not? There are, as you'd expect, a few milestones that could be hit this weekend. If Valtteri Bottas can make it to the podium, it will be his 60th top 3 finish, and that will put him level with Nelson Piquet in 10th place on the list of the most F1 podiums, and he will actually be just 2 behind David Coulthard. We often talk about most race starts, but if Fernando Alonso finishes the race on Sunday, that will be his 250th of his career, and if Raikkonen finishes, he'll move on to 265, keeping himself solidly top of that list. Whilst we have seen a Russian driver at every single race around Baku, we've never seen one finish, meaning if Nikita Mazepin does finish the Grand Prix, he will become the first one to do that. And yes, I know he's not racing under the Russian flag, but he is still Russian. Let's not get into that one. And if a Mercedes-powered car takes pole position on Saturday, it will be the 213th time that has happened, and would see them equal Renault as the engine manufacturer with the second most poles in F1. Thank you so much as always to Lights Out Blog for providing some of the stats for today's preview, and if you love to read up on F1 stats, it is well worth checking out their website, and you can find a link to that in the description down below. They do some great work over there. Before we get on to my predictions for the weekend, then it is time to have a look at some driver form, and as was the case for Monaco, I've picked out 5 at random. Sebastian Vettel has finished inside the top 4 each year in Baku, with his best result being 2nd place in 2016, but he also finished on the podium in 2019 with 3rd place. Vettel has also never failed to qualify outside of the top 4 at the track and took pole position in 2018 for Ferrari, but that is the only time he has started on the front row in Baku. Max Verstappen has yet to register a podium finish in Baku, with his best result to date being P4 in 2019. That was preceded by 2 straight DNFs though, the most famous of which coming after a collision with his teammate Daniel Ricciardo. He has always made it into Q3 though, and his worst result on a Saturday was 9th, and that came in 2016. George Russell made his first appearance at the track in 2019 and finished 15th, beating teammate Robert Kubica as the two of them rounded out the race finishers. He also out-qualified the pole, taking 19th on the Saturday prior to the exclusion of Raikkonen and Gasly. Russell did take victory in the F2 sprint race back in 2018 though. Mick Schumacher has never raced in Baku in Formula One. I know you're surprised because this is obviously his first ever season in the series. However, he did race around the circuit in 2019 in F2. He qualified 6th place for the feature race but failed to finish. However, did go on to finish 5th in the sprint race on Sunday, despite starting all the way down in 19th. And Charles Leclerc has scored points at each of his appearances at the circuit, claiming 6th in 2018 for Alfa Romeo Sauber, and of course 5th place last time out. However, it could have been so much more in 2019 after he looked on for pole heading into Q3 before crashing out at the Castle section, ending his session and leaving him 8th on the grid. That did, though, represent his best starting position at the track. Time for some predictions, and I've got 2 lots for you this week. One realistic and one to appease those who prefer something a bit more bold or unpredictable than the ones I do based on current and recent form. The first set are completely random. I assigned every driver a number between 1 and 20 based on their current championship position and used a random number generator to pick the drivers to take pole, the winner, the podium and the fastest lap, as well as how many drivers will finish and how many safety cars we will see. And here is what we ended up with. Pole position, according to the random number generator, will go to Lewis Hamilton. No great shocks there, I suppose. Wouldn't be a big surprise. Esteban Ocon, though, will take the win with Nikita Mazepin and Carlos Sainz taking the other 2 spots on the podium. I mean, wow. Fastest lap goes to Charles Leclerc, finishes 16, and safety cars we're going to see apparently a total of 5. As for my actual predictions, I do think assuming that the wing is worth something that Red Bull and Verstappen are likely to be the ones to beat this weekend, and so I would not be at all surprised to see the Dutchman take pole and go on and take the win as well. However, whilst that's what my head is telling me, my gut is kind of telling me that there is one driver who loves Baku and needs a win big time this weekend, not necessarily for his championship hopes, however slim they may be, but also for his own confidence, and that is Valtteri Bottas. I did go over all of this in a video on Tuesday, which I'll link on screen now if you want to go and have a watch, but this is a big weekend for him and he does enjoy the track. So I'm going to hedge my bets a little bit and go for Verstappen to take pole, but I'm going to say Bottas for the win with Verstappen and Hamilton close behind. Yes, I know that's another variation of the Ham-Bot Ver podium we see so often, but, you know, it'll probably be that 3 unless we see a bit of chaos, and you never know in Baku. I will add, though, that it won't be easy for Bottas, and I'm not going to say that he will necessarily win it on outright pace. It could easily be that he takes advantage of a well-timed safety car or something along those lines. Then again, Mercedes is saying they will struggle this weekend, but they've been saying that every weekend since about 2014, so we'll see. Maybe Verstappen will run away with it. My one to watch or wild card for this weekend is Sergio Perez because he has always gone well at Baku. He's been on the podium twice after all, so hopefully he can get to grips with that car on Saturday, qualify well, and that sets him up nicely for a strong race. As for the rest, it really could come down to whether or not Ferrari and Alpine run their flexi wings, and if they do, how much of an advantage that gives them down the straight. And when you consider how close it is between Ferrari and McLaren, for example, any advantage, no matter how small, could make all the difference. Therefore, I'm going to go with Ferrari as best of the rest for this weekend, closely followed by McLaren, with, let's say, Alpine just pipping Aston Martin to a couple more points. As always, though, for goodness sake, do not take these two seriously. I know some will get upset that I didn't pick their favourite driver for the win and I'm condemning them to the fiery depths of hell or whatever every reaction I get this week, but it is just a bit of fun at the end of the day and something to look back on in the race reaction when I am inevitably completely wrong. Before I go, though, let's have our usual quick look at the timings for this weekend. All the sessions are slightly earlier than the usual times for the European events. FP1 runs for 1 hour on Friday and starts at 9:30am UK time, that's BST, with FP2 starting at 1pm. FP3 gets underway from 10am on Saturday, with qualifying starting at 1pm later that day, and lights out for the race will be on the hour at 1pm on Sunday. I am very much looking forward to this one. That is it, though, for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix preview, but you can, as always, let me know your thoughts and your predictions ahead of this weekend in the comment section down below. Now, I will be back soon with some more content, but in the meantime, if you did enjoy this one, then please do leave a like, as it really helps out the channel, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future uploads. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean, this has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.